Yo, 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 what is up, you guys? Welcome to another incredible episode of the Explain It podcast. We are your hosts. I am Stephen Hunt.
I'm Ingrid Hernandez.
And boy, do we have a show for you. We are so excited to introduce our upcoming guests here. Would you do the honors for us, Ingrid?
Yes. So this gal has helped me through so many deals. And I would say there's a lot of amazing transaction coordinators, but eventually you find the one that you groove with, you groove with, and me and Perla be grooving. So Perla Argyle from TC Deal Pros is here to join us. She's amazing. Hey, Perla.
Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, we're so
Yeah.
excited to have you.
Jinx.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
going to say. So awesome. Well, Perla, give us a little rundown. Tell us a little bit about your journey into real estate, how you got to where you're at right now, and then we'll start getting into everything TC related.
All right, sounds good. So I kind of was one of those accidental landlords. That's how I got started in sub two. I got married to my husband, Matt, and I already had a house from before with my ex-husband. And he's like, I am not living in the house. You did the dirty with someone else in that room? Don't think so, So I was like, okay, let's rent it out. I just, I kind of want to have like a safety nest egg for retirement. So we rented it. Then when we moved around a lot, we ended up buying a house about a year and a half later. And then 3 months later, he found a job and we moved again. And we're like, okay, let's leave it as a rental. And we just kind of kept doing that. And I was like, I feel like we should be doing this more. And I started looking into all these different um, mentorships, following a lot of people on YouTube, like Jerry Norton, like Pace Morby, like Jamil and Brent Daniels, all those names that everybody knows, Cody Sperber. And I ended up in sub two and I started cold calling. I was cold calling agents on my own. I was making calls for a couple of people in sub two within their team, calling sellers. And I am so comfortable talking to people. I'm a chameleon socially. I can talk to a bum. I can talk to a Hells Angels biker. It doesn't matter. I'll talk to anybody. So I had no issues there, but I kind of had something that was always holding me back. Like, what happens when they say yes? And I'm like, I don't know because that's never talked about in any of the Zooms, right? Pace
Yeah.
has great trainings, but at the end of the day, he's not a paperwork person. He's a visionary. He's a closer. So naturally, he doesn't talk about the escrow process because that's not his thing. And I kept asking, like, what happens when people say yes? And then it was always like, oh, you just get a TC, you just get a TC. But that was like my TC mind saying, like, no, I need to know. I need the details. I need to read the contracts. I need to know all this behind the scenes stuff because that's just my personality. I like to know the details. And that was already my TC brain kind of working in the background. And I said, okay, let's go look at what this whole TC thing is all about. So I started looking into the training at the time. Kayla Christopher was doing the trainings within Sub 2. And I was like, this is so me. And I started TCing almost exactly 2 years ago. It was December. It would have been 2 years ago. And now I've done, I don't know, probably over 700 transactions.
Wow.
Wow.
And, this was where I was supposed to be for sure.
Congratulations.
So thank
So
you.
I can unpack that just slightly too. So when you were looking to even get into the real estate space, I love that you are the accidental landlord, by the way. Having a property management business, I have plenty of accidental landlords. And it's awesome to see how their brains work and how they want to, maybe we should do more of this,
Yeah.
so cool. But with you looking at everybody in real estate, you were looking at Cody Sperber, you named all of them. Right, all
Yeah.
the heavy hitters. What made you land on Pace? What made you land on Sub 2? Because if I remember correctly, Ingrid actually went through this too. I
Yeah.
did not
A
go
lot
through
of
this
us
because I
did.
was informed to just go straight to Pace. So I didn't even have to go through this search. But Ingrid also had a similar story in that sense. So I'm curious what it looked like for you.
Yeah, so I think what attracted me to the Sub 2 community is that, yes, it's called Sub 2 because it's based off creative finance, but you're going to learn about everything.
Mm.
Like you're going to learn about fix and flips, about Airbnbs, about um, Morby methods, about traditional financing, um, all the things, cash transactions, pre-foreclosures. Whereas I feel like most other mentorships, they really specialize in one thing, and then they're only going to teach you about that one thing. And I can't imagine, like, if I had joined, let's see, Brett Daniels, who's really good closer, does a lot of cash deals, when really my personality was not suited to that. And that
Mhm.
been kind of stuck there after already making a big financial investment. So the fact that within the Sub2 community, you can learn about all these different like avatars, right? And all these different aspects of how you can be involved in real estate, because not everybody has that closer personality. Not
Mhm.
everybody should be a fix and flipper, as you two know. It's
Mhm.
not for everybody, right? So I loved that it just had so many different avenues of getting into real estate, not just one. Even though it's known as like the Sub2 or creative finance, you really learn about everything in there.
Oh yeah, it's such a multifaceted group of people. It
Yeah.
really is. What I love about this too, Perla, is that you identified what works best for you.
Yeah.
You recognize, hey, I'm not a closer. Hey, I don't necessarily want to be the fix and flipper. Hey, maybe I don't want to do these things over here, but this side over here, this is calling my name.
Yeah.
What did that look like for you? Did you try doing some of the different stuff as well to begin with, and it was just you felt like, I hate this.
Just the cold calling, honestly. I do actually still want to fix and flip. I do want, and you guys are totally at the top of our list. My husband and I have both talked about it because I before this I actually used to flip furniture.
Oh
So I
wow.
would take people throw out pieces of furniture, or they were just giving it away or selling it super cheap, and I would, while my kids were napping, I'd fix it up and then resell it. So I love the whole just taking something really ugly and making it beautiful again.
Yeah.
And my husband does too, because our other houses we did some work on, and he's like, "Yeah, I really want to do that." I'm like, "We should definitely partner the first few times with somebody who knows their stuff." And my husband knows Ingrid personally. So he's like, "Yeah, we'll use your friend Ingrid. She knows what she's doing."
So good.
I don't know when that's going to happen, but at some point it's going to happen. So
If I'm being
I
honest
just,
with you, it's probably easier if you guys just lend us money and then
And we just
uh,
take you along and
probably
we add you to our
yeah, we take you along.
communications and
true.
Yeah. But I mean, you guys are busy. Isn't he a
I
lawyer?
know he is. And that's part of why I haven't really tried those other things,
Yeah.
especially like fix and flipping, because I don't really, with 5 little kids, I don't really have time to go, and I live in the middle of nowhere, to drive
Mhm.
out to these job sites and check on contractors. And, that just doesn't fit
yeah.
my lifestyle right now. Whereas like TCing, it is such a great job if you just need to stay at home.
Oh, you're at home, you got the headset on, you're chilling. It's
Yeah, I
awesome.
got the trucker headset and
So
everything. So I can
good.
hear my kids out of this ear and my team out of this ear.
Oh, I love it. Perfect. So you go ahead and you step into the TC world. What did that transition look like for you? Were you immediately inundated with business? Did you have to put yourself out there? Like, what did that look like? And because 700 contracts, that's a lot of freaking contracts.
It
I
is.
wish I had done 700 contracts in my life.
Right?
But
So
that's just so awesome.
I think it's like with anything else. When you're new, you take all the trainings and then you're like, awesome. I have no idea what to do. Right? So, I mean, it's just like college. You get a piece of paper that you paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for, and you have no idea what to do on the first day. So I went and interned with another TC. I did about 4 transactions with his company. They got paid. They walked me through step by step. Like, I did all the work as they taught me how. And then I was like, "Okay, I think I'm comfortable. I get what I'm doing now." And I think it really helps that my personality, like, I just love talking to people. I love networking. It was very easy for me to just start um putting myself out there. So I would just set up all these networking calls just to get to know people in the community. I think most of them I never ended up even having as a client, but it made me very comfortable just talking to new people, putting myself out there, and I just slowly started being or growing my business. Pretty soon I had like 25 contracts a month, and that's more
Wow.
than people should be doing. I'll be honest, that is not good. Unless you have help, But to be just doing that completely on your own is a lot because people want things done quickly. You don't want things to slip through the crack. And of course, if you have a family, like if I was single, sure, had no kids, I could do 25 easy, but not with 5 kids
No,
and a
No.
family.
no.
So,
Oh, that's so awesome.
yeah.
Cool. So in that sense too, I mean, it's just like anything else, right? As soon as the volume starts to pick up, you either have to make that decision of, hey, do I want to stay solopreneur? Do I want to keep it in this wheelhouse right here and spend the time with my family? Or do I want to scale this whole operation out? And I've seen some TCs out there try to do the scale out thing. Then I see them scale down. I see kind of the back and forth between all of it. Is your sweet spot still being the solopreneur, or did you end up hiring more people on and continuing to grow that out?
Yeah, we actually have a team of 5 now. So I have 3 full-time TCs and a VA from the Philippines. I mean, part of the reason we have the headset is because we are on all day virtual office all day. It is fantastic. We have such a great culture in there. We're always helping each other out, stepping in like, "Hey, my kid is sick today," because we're all moms other than our VA. So, we're like, "Hey, can you do this for me? Can you send out this for my file?" And because we have our CRM, we can see everybody's text, everybody's email. It's super easy to send stuff out for each other or pretend to be each other like, "Hey, can you send this text to this person on my behalf?" It's fantastic. I wouldn't go back at all.
I love that.
So,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I know that when people are thinking about joining or doing real estate, everyone goes right down to like, let's go flip or let's be a landlord. So I love that there's alternatives. Other things that people haven't thought of. Go be a notary. Like you can be a notary.
yeah, you could.
You can go work at an escrow company. You could, if you have your license, you could think about what it looks like to become an appraiser or provide what they call, if you're a broker, provide
Inspector.
BPOs. So there's all these other tangent services that folks can provide in real estate. And honestly, and Pesos is a lot. The problem with real estate is that there's so many ways to make money. You have to figure out, which way you want to focus and which way do you want to stick to. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. So people who are not in sub 2 need to understand like a different name for sub 2 could easily be like the shiny object
Object
syndrome
mentorship.
group. Yeah. Because I mean, seriously, people are making like you'll see a post like, "Oh my gosh, I made 200K this year doing this." And then somebody is like, "I made 200, 500K doing this." And then you're like, "Oh, I got to do what they're doing. Oh, I got to do what they're
Yep.
doing."
Mhm,
It's
mhm.
the first 6 months in there, it's insane because
Oh,
Yes.
you just want you see so many people just making it. But I think it comes down to any part of real estate or anything in life, really. You can be just as successful if you stay consistent.
yeah.
Mhm.
I
I
would
I
so
mean,
agree
it's
with
like
that.
we're coming up on New Year's, right? Everybody's got their New Year's resolutions. I want to lose weight, like, and somebody's like, "Oh, I did this, or I did that, or I took this, or I went to this gym, or this." It's like they can all work. The problem is most people give up halfway through January,
Mhm.
and it's
Well,
the
and I
same
feel
thing
like
with real
so many
estate.
people in the sub 2 space or just real estate in general trying to get into real estate, like you mentioned too, it's like people feel like they have to fix and flip or they have to do the wholesale deals, whatever the
Yeah,
case is. And to Ingrid's point, there's so many services that are based around real estate that open up so many doors. Just even me having a property management business. I started a business that was
yeah,
servicing real estate investors, and
Mhm.
it's opened up so many relationships that I would not have had, like people coming to me that I wouldn't have been able to get 5 minutes of their time, if I was reaching out to
absolutely.
them. So I'm curious what that
Yeah.
looks like for you too, Perla, is how many relationships has this opened up for you? Because I'm sure it got to a point where now you're just getting referrals coming in all the time too, because somebody else had a great experience working with you. And they're like,
Yep.
you got to use Perla. I see your name tagged like 300 times a day. Like I feel like
Ingrid's
everybody's
one of those
tagging
people.
you. Well, you're phenomenal and your work shows for itself. So I'm curious what
Thank
that's
you.
looked like for you too on that side, where how many doors has this opened up for you?
Something people need to realize about transaction coordinators is that we touch everybody in each file.
Mhm.
So the sellers knows us. We're unless the buyer's default, we're probably never going to hear from them again. But now we have agents who are creative friendly. Now we have wholesalers. We have end buyers. We have JV partners. If there's a private money lender, now there's a PML too. And all of them have touched base with us. We've
Wow.
built rapport with every single one of them. So we have a lot of connections to people. Like my business partner sometimes like, oh, hey, we need to um we're trying to find money for this. I'm like, I got you. And then I'll go find them a private money lender and then I get to charge them for that, right? So we can find a lot of connections because we meet everybody. The hard thing I think has been as a TC is unfortunately we do have buyers who default, whether that's on a sub two or with their private money lender, and everybody wants us to connect them. And I don't. I say, hey, I don't connect people to lenders unless I've done a lot of deals with them and I trust you. And I'm not saying I don't trust you. We just haven't done enough business yet where I recommend you to somebody because guess what? Guess who everybody calls
When
when
something goes
someone
wrong.
gets with
Yeah.
someone? Yep, they call
Mhm,
me.
mhm.
I,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
hate when we get calls from agents or sellers like, hey, they're not paying. And I'm like, okay, I'll see what I can do. And sometimes it's really easy. They're like, oh, I didn't set up auto pay or something like that. And other times we can't get a hold of people. And I'm like,
Mm.
hey, these were the documents. Like, I obviously don't want to throw people under the bus. I'm like, hey, here's the documents that were signed at closing. Here's another copy of them. You can take them to an attorney and they can help you take it from there. I'm not an attorney. I can interpret these for you. But here you go. Like,
But how
yeah.
awesome for you too, as you continue to grow your business, as you continue to generate more revenue, all that kind of fun stuff. You now have the pool of people as well that you can go to. You're like, I know who my fix and flippers are. I know who my
Yeah.
buy and hold investors are that I can rely on and that I can trust, that don't miss
Yeah,
payments,
absolutely.
that are the
Yep.
go-to people. Like, you're like, I know when I want to be a lender, I can go do this. I know that when I want to do XYZ, I can go to these people. And it helps you. I mean, the
Exactly.
skills that you've probably obtained by being able to read through people and see who's
Yeah.
legit and not legit, that's phenomenal. That's huge. What a
Yeah.
value.
And even a deal, like when somebody calls me, sometimes like 30 seconds into it, I'm like, I don't even need to know, I don't even need to see the documents yet. And I can already tell they don't have a deal. Because when you've seen that many files, it's so easy to just be like, nope, that that's not based off of what you just told me, this is not going to work out. So,
Mhm.
and I'll try and help them to fix the things they need to fix so hopefully they can turn it into a deal. And I think that's where a lot of the value from a TC can come from, is because we've seen a lot of what can go wrong. We can help steer people to help them prevent all of those things that can go wrong in a transaction.
Is that
Mm.
is that a service that you offer too, like a consulting service to say, "Hey, I have an interested seller, but I need to know, like, am I structuring this in a way that this becomes a deal? And then, do I have the right paperwork? Like, how walk me through that. Is there so from my perspective, a TC or what most people understand a TC to be is the you now have a contract. It has to get to escrow, and now the execution components of that contract are being coordinated. Making sure you have the seller's information, make sure you have the buyer's information, make sure somebody's looking at the title and reviewing like what was found, and then moving from there. Um, is there a preemptive service that you provide too, Perla? Like,
Yeah,
especially for so many newbies out there?
so many newbies. And I always recommend a first timer use a TC because you just don't know what to look for. You don't know what you're going to miss because, you've never
Mhm.
done it before.
Yeah.
So we do have a couple of options. So for instance, somebody already has a deal under contract, whether they're a buyer or a wholesaler. So let's say it's a wholesaler. They submit a deal to our website. On our website, they give everybody's information and they can upload contracts or any other documents like mortgage statements, or JVs, anything like that, and then they book a call on my calendar. Before that call, I review everything and then we get on the call and I say, "Hey, this looks great," or, "Hey, you know what? There are some promises you might have made to your seller that don't look great on here." Okay. Like, let's talk about these. Like, I'm looking for red flags like, "Hey,
Performance deeds.
performance deed, red
Yeah.
flag, deed in
Mhm.
lieu, red flag,
Yeah. Oh my
balloon in 1 year, red
Did you
flag."
read that story recently where I think maybe even you reposted it afterwards, where a seller
Oh my
took a
gosh.
pre-signed deed in lieu and went and recorded it because there was nothing stopping them from doing it.
Yeah, and
That's
if you kept reading in the comments, I think he said that it was not even the one that was that the servicer was holding. So it sounds like it was fraud.
fraud. Okay.
Wow.
Well,
He's like, that
you can't
signature didn't
really,
match mine.
yeah, you can't mitigate fraud. That's too
Yeah.
difficult. Yeah.
But again, I'm like, in over 700 transactions, I have never allowed a deed in lieu in a
Yeah.
single one. So
It's
that's one of those things that I do on that consultation. And for my team anyway, we don't charge for those. But I will say, hey, this is why we don't recommend a deed in lieu. This is what we recommend instead. At this point, I've said it so many times that I ended up just recording a loom, and I'm like, you can send this to your seller, okay,
Mhm.
or to your agent, or I'll hop on the call once we're on the deal, and I'm happy to explain it, and they realize, hey, you're right, this is like the way I say it, it's like a really good coupon, and then has all this fine print that you realize you can't even use it.
Mm.
That's the
So
best way I
let's back
explain the
that up
deed
for
in
some
lieu.
people too here because we use the word deed in lieu or the phrase deed in lieu a little bit
Yeah.
there. What is a deed in lieu? Because there's some people watching right now that are like, what the heck does that even mean? And should I be watching out for this? Should I be scared of this? What is that?
Yeah, so a deed is just, the document that states who owns the property. In lieu is a legal term to mean instead of. So the full term is deed in lieu of foreclosure. So you're giving someone the deed instead of foreclosing on them. The issue is, so when you own a property, so let's say, Stephen, you own a property, you can deed it to whoever you want. You own that house.
Mhm.
You can deed it to your mom, to your sister, back to a seller. Doesn't matter. It's yours. You can do with it what you want as long as you're not doing something illegal. So if you were defaulting, you could deed it back to the seller. Hey, Mr. Seller, things aren't working out. I promised you I would take over your mortgage payments and I have not stood by my word. I'm going to go ahead and deed it back to you. That's totally okay. There's no problem with that. The problem is in a deed in lieu situation, you're agreeing ahead of time that that's what you're going to do before it even happens. And judges don't like that because you're agreeing that you're going to go around the local foreclosure laws and just do it your way.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
judges don't like
Same
that.
with performance deeds. So if you
Yeah,
guys,
same thing.
back in the day, a lot of folks were talking about performance deeds and saying, hey, if you're ever late or you miss 2 payments in a row, automatically I'm going to get the title back. And
Yeah,
so
there's no such
performance
thing as
deeds,
automatic.
there's no such thing as automatic, correct? So folks don't understand that, and they think that that's something that they can add to their contracts, not realizing it's actually protecting them, and it's supposed to respect the rule of law in the state you're in. So
Mhm.
it's why, like, there's other ways that you could do it. Like instead of selling it sub two, let's say your investor selling a wrap, you might want to consider doing an agreement for sale or a contract for deed, because then you're subject to forfeiture laws instead of foreclosure, and it's easier
Mhm.
to get your house back. But at the end of the
Crazy.
day, and by the way, I thought I was going to be a lawyer because I'm a justice studies major. At the end of the day, it's about due process, and due
I could see
process
that.
is both parties, not just one party. It's supposed to be a balanced thing. And so people get upset when due process happens on the other side of the aisle. So, yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of attorneys, it should be held by a third party, right? That
Yeah.
document.
Mhm.
And attorneys don't want to hold that because guess what, Stephen? If that attorney like holds that document and then that attorney says, hey, it is supposed to go to the seller and you don't agree with that, who's afraid of getting sued? The attorney, right? So that's a huge liability for them. So they don't want it. Title companies, that's not their role. Theirs is just to close it. So they won't hold it either. So nobody will hold it. It should not be the buyer because they could be in default and then they just refuse to record it. It could be the seller. And a lot of sellers don't know that paperwork. They don't know how to read legal documents. And they're like, oh, it's 1 day late. I can go record this deed now, which is kind of what happened in that situation Ingrid was talking about with that post where the seller, whether or not it was fraudulent or not, but he recorded that deed in lieu and took the property back. So
Mhm.
Wow.
And it could be also bad for your seller. Like, let's say, Steven, you bought a property sub two, you put a $60,000 lien on it because you were going to renovate it, turn it into an Airbnb. It didn't work out. Well, now your seller is going to get this house back that he may not want because it has another $60,000 lien on it. And he would have to pay, 20, 40K out of pocket just to sell the thing.
Mm.
Mhm.
So it might not be in their benefit to get it back either way.
Right.
So
Totally.
lots of issues. I think the problem is a lot of new people, especially in the sub two community, will watch some of these videos that are 2 or 3 years old. Performance deeds in lieu were mentioned because at the time people thought they were good. And that's just one of those things where, like, better, you do better. But those videos are still there. There should be something in the comments that say this is no longer advised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That is the tough thing because like things evolve for sure.
yeah, especially in this industry, it is just ever changing.
Oh, I mean, you even go all the way back to novations. There was a whole push for novation agreements and all that kind of stuff, and they never really made sense to me on the front end.
Yeah.
In fact, even Eileen Brown, because I was like, I
Mhm.
think I might want to do a novation. It was one of my first deals that I was doing. I was like, I think I might want to do a novation on this one. She's like, that's not what it's called. She's like, and you don't want to do that. Trust me, just buy it sub two, do a silent second position, do it this way, take ownership. And I was like, oh my gosh, that makes way more sense, And
Yeah.
now that whole tune shifted as well away from the novations. Not saying there's not a time and a place,
Yeah.
but it just completely shifted.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's one of
Novations are
those.
now more like, oh, sorry. I would say
Oh, no.
novations are now more like MLS concierge. As long as
Mhm.
you're not having to put more than a 500 or maybe even up to $3,000 and you're okay losing $3,000, it's the only time you should be doing a novation. Anything more than that, you should be taking it over sub two or agreement for sale or something like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's another benefit to using a TC is I'll get
Mhm.
a deal submission and it says they're planning on doing novation. I'm like, hey, have you considered doing it this way instead? And a
Mhm.
lot of times it's just you don't know, you're new, and we're encouraged to go out there and make messes and take action, and that's great. I encourage that. Don't just get stuck in watching video mode, right? Um, but be willing to just learn from your mistakes and take advice from people who have done more deals with you, who have than you, and who've seen things go wrong.
Or just call Perla and she'll guide you through the whole entire process at TC Deal Pros. You can find her at tcdealpros. What's the actual
dot
plug?
com.
Plug.
dot gov.
There is a link in the bio.
Awesome.
Yeah. So if you
Or if
guys
you're,
go,
if you
yeah.
need someone to JV with, I recommend I tag Ingrid a lot as well for that same reason because there's a lot of people who JV with others. And sure, they know they can close people. There's a lot of fantastic closers, right? And but not everybody who's a good closer necessarily knows how to do good business.
Correct.
Mm.
They're not always the same thing, right? And something I love working with Ingrid is like she is extremely experienced. She's done like every deal type, right? She was the first person in sub two to finish a Morby method. She's done stuff as an agent, so she knows the seller side, and she's watching out for those sellers as well. She's done sub twos, she's done hybrids, she's done wraps, cash, fix and flip. So she knows her stuff. Um, but she also just works with integrity and she discloses things. Like
Mhm.
my team did a daisy chain with her, and I was like, that was probably the smoothest daisy
Yes.
chain ever because everybody knew about it.
Mhm.
You're not worried about people going behind your back and not knowing and all these things. And then it's awkward with the sellers. They're like, wait, I thought you were going to buy it. Oh, no, or maybe you were going to buy it. And who are you? And you're like, what is this? Like, who is taking over my credit here? And everybody's very upfront. And that's always like my number one rule in real estate. Like, top tip from a TC who's done 700 transaction is disclose, disclose, disclose. Lead with integrity and be upfront with your sellers. And Ingrid is fantastic at that.
Oh.
So that's why I always
Wow.
recommend her.
So
Thank
phenomenal.
you.
I can attest to that too. Ingrid is honestly the JV queen. If anybody has deals, you should honestly bring it to Ingrid. She can break everything down for you. She can tell. She can also read through your bullshit too. So don't bring her none of her crap. You know what I mean? She'll cut you off real fast.
She
But
will.
truly, she's so phenomenal. I'm more of an independent person, and me and Ingrid have had the ability to have great synergy on all the deals that we've done together. But I'm totally not the right person to go to with JVs because I'm a very transactional person. Let me do my thing. Let me go get this done. I'm here to move on. Ingrid will sit and educate and work through it with you and let you know exactly what's going on. She'll make sure that you're confident in the process. And that takes a very special type of person. So I
Absolutely.
fully agree with you, Perla.
Yep. And
Thank you,
she's
guys.
not I always say she's not a knucklehead, you know. She knows what she's doing. She's not a knucklehead. She's not gonna be like, why would they do this? I never say that.
Mm,
Mm,
Yeah.
no, I appreciate both of you saying that, but I also think that, maybe it's a good Lord's work, but you attract a certain person because of that too. And I feel
Absolutely.
like Perla doing business with you and even doing business with you, Stephen, like I feel like when you lead with integrity, you're also going to attract the right kind of people to work with you.
mhm.
Yeah.
Because if you're direct and if you're clear, there's you can't mess with that. Like, it's way more easier to do business and you're not trying to manage things that are uh I don't know, that aren't you can't see. Like I don't know how to explain
Yeah.
that, but I'm very fortunate so far that I haven't had to deal with weirdos like that because yeah, I do cut it off from the start. And
Yeah.
Perla, I mean, this is why I love sending people to you, like I feel like I was able to cultivate a relationship with you maybe at the right time where it's like, go to Perla. I trust her. I know that as picky as I am about how a contract is written, like how a process is created, how a transaction should evolve, like, and Perla, I know even when you were starting up your business, like I was able to give good feedback and you were so accepting of it. And,
Yeah.
and that makes for a good leader and a good business operator. So like business owner,
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I'm really proud of what you and Eddie are out there creating with TC Deal Pros and like
Thank you.
and building in like so you said 2025 is coming.
Hmm.
We have, we're all putting our goals together. So what does it look like? Honestly, at the end of the day, I want to talk to you a little bit more like a business owner, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
me
Like
too.
what has that experience been like for you? Because now you have to
That's boring.
scale. Now you have to trust other people like to run your business. And
It's
in
hard.
this specific
So
business,
scary.
there's so much hand holding and people managing. Like, how has that been?
I got to tell you guys on the business side, a funny story that involves Ingrid. So we brought in a TC into my team named Monica, and we kind of like round robin the deals, right? And I was like, "Oh, this is Ingrid, your first file ever." She had no real estate background. It was with Ingrid. I was like, "Here's what." She was like just scared out of her mind of Ingrid. I was like, "Ingrid has done it all. She's not a knucklehead. She knows what she's doing." um she these are her expectations, all this stuff, and I mean she was just terrified, and by the end she was like, I think I can handle anybody now. But she was like just terrified of you because you know what you're doing, and of course she feels like I have no idea what I'm doing, this is my very first file. um, but Ingrid gave her some great feedback and there were some really great learning lessons. So I think that's really important as a business owner. That is something that we do every time we work with a new client. After we finish a file, they're going to call you and they're going to say, "Hey, we just wanted to get some feedback. Was there some things that you liked that we did, or some things you wish we had done that we didn't? How can we improve our practice?" Um, that I think is a really great practice in any business, right? So
Mm-hmm.
just like, hey, you go to fast food and they ask you, take our survey. How did we do? So implementing that into your business is really important. Having a way just have really open communication with your team members as a business owner. I think is also really important in our business. We have like a one-on-one every week or every other week with our team members. That's where they get to come to us like, hey, can you explain this to me again in real estate? Or what could I have done in this situation because it got a little hairy at
Mhm.
times? Or, we'll break down a call. We do call calibrations. How are they doing on customer service? What can we do to improve? I think those are all important things to do within a business. And if you are, we don't want to ever be micromanagers to our team, right? And that's really hard as a TC because if you're not
That's
at
your
least a
specialty.
little, yeah, if you're not at least a little OCD as a TC, you're probably
Mm.
not good at what you do. Like you
Mhm.
kind of like it kind of attracts that like OCD control freak
Yeah.
personality, right? Because that's our job. Like we need to know all the details. We need to know everything that's going on from all parties. And I got to tell you, it was so hard at first to just hand it over. So incredibly hard.
Mm. Well, you care. You care so much, and
Yeah.
it shows that you care. And it is when you have a certain standard. I was just listening to a podcast with Alex Hermosi and Layla Hermosi on this. Actually, is about setting standards within the business, and you have a certain standard level that you've set for yourself, and it's a very, very high standard, and that's why you've been able
Yeah.
to grow so fast and you're so successful, and you have high integrity, all these things. So it's difficult when somebody else has to come in, take the reins. You know they're going to mess up. You have to be okay with all these things. You have to be okay with them having this ramp up time.
Yeah.
um that's so scary and so hard, and you've done it now time and time again. You have 5 people on your team,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
I
and
can't
we've
imagine.
told them like, "Hey, you're gonna mess up, and that's okay. Like, we expect that you're gonna mess up. You're gonna screw up a file or two, and that's okay. We're gonna give you feedback. It's not okay to not accept the feedback, to
Mhm.
not try and improve, to not better yourself, to not better your practices. That's not part of our team culture.
Mhm.
Messing up, that's part of the industry. That's part of
Yes.
the job. So having just clear expectations, and that's something like my business partner is really good at, just like making sure you have very clear communication with clients. People just have things that they repeat a lot that they become like if you were going to impersonate them, that's probably what you would say.
Yeah.
Right. And for me it's like no pronouns. We do not allow pronouns in our Zoom. So if you're talking about a file, I'm like, who is they? Is they the title company? Is they the seller? Is that the buyer? Or like just being and in emails, sometimes people will send us emails. I'm like, I have no idea what that said because there were so many pronouns and there's 5 people that you talked about. So can you please,
That's
communicate?
hilarious. Talk about non-binary or
Yeah. I'm like,
non-gender.
I know it's like 2024 and everyone's all about their
No.
pronouns, but they have no space here.
Yeah, no. We need names and need to know entities.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
So
exactly. So just setting really clear expectations, having clear communications with clients. So, uh, you know, I'm like, hey, can you go back and ask them what did they mean when they say this? And I'm sure some people might get annoyed, especially people who are like the visionaries. They're just like, I don't want to answer another text, but I'm like, but if we don't get that answer, it could screw up this file. Like
yeah.
we need to be very clear, and that's our job as a TC. As much as we don't want to bother people all the time, we need to have very clear communications on what is expected from this file, from this transaction.
Mhm.
Is this in writing? How should this be written up? Is like those are all the things that can differentiate you as a good TC versus just your average. Like,
Hmm.
hey, I'm just a paper pusher.
That's so I love that you guys also identify those types of qualities, the visionaries, the integrators of the world, who does what, all those types of things. I don't know if you would love me or hate me, Perla, if we work together on transactions, because I am like 98% visionary on the test. You know what I mean? And my title
I'm
girl
sure
has
I
to
would love
literally
you.
text me, and she has to like hound me down. She has to send carrier pigeons just to get my attention. So
Yeah,
I
well, that's the great thing about having clients that you work with on a regular basis is you get to see what they expect and you see how they work. And then it just becomes easier and easier every time. Like, okay, yes, I already have all your contact. I have all your LLC documents. I don't have to keep asking you for all of that. I also know what you expect of me when I talk to your sellers, when I talk to your agents. Can I talk to your agents? Can I talk to your sellers? I don't have to bother you with those little questions because it's return business.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Oh,
So
it's so
yes,
good.
you're a visionary. So the first time we did a transaction would probably be the hardest. And then after that, it just gets easier and easier and easier.
Love it. Oh, it's so good. Now for
Yeah.
the aspiring TCs out
I
there,
love that,
because I feel
Roger.
like we've really gained traction in the TC world where people are recognizing not just TC, but they're recognizing across the board that there are services like we talked about earlier in the podcast. I can make money by not flipping and by not wholesaling and by not doing these things, but I can be a service to these people doing it and still do
Yeah.
real estate. How cool. So for the aspiring people out there, what do typical margins, and you don't have to share yours specifically, but what do the typical margins look like for a TC if somebody was getting into it? What are they actually making? And then when they start scaling out a team, because I'll tell you right now, property management, not big margins. It's definitely a volume-based business, right? Whereas
Absolutely.
fix and
And
flipping can
title
be a little
company.
bit less volume because we have bigger margins.
Absolutely. Yeah, but you're making all those connections, right? And sometimes that makes it worth it. It's
Totally.
who, not how. So I see here's the difference people need to understand is like when you're coming from traditional real estate, like Ingrid, how she's an agent, those files, most of their agents pay them like 300 to 400, maybe 500 a file, pretty
Hmm.
Yeah,
low, but they're
400
very
is fine.
simple. Yeah,
Mhm.
they're very simple transactions in general. They don't, and their close rates are also really high. But real estate, it's the wild, wild west sometimes, right? So
Investing,
they're,
yeah, yeah.
A lot of the
yeah,
Mhm.
time.
they get so complicated. They can get really dramatic. You have, especially in creative finance, once you get that title commitment, it could just go anywhere, right? And things aren't going to be paid off. All these undisclosed liens. Now, what are we going to get? What are we going to do with them? All this stuff. So they're just a lot more complicated. Um, but for most TCs are going to charge you depending on the level of complexity, not within the file because you don't know what you're walking into, but a cash transaction is going to be probably the lowest fee, and then a seller finance, and then a sub two and or a hybrid wrap novations. They have a lot more paperwork, behind the
Morby
scenes,
methods.
Morby methods. Yep.
Mhm. Mhm.
So you're going to get charged by the transaction type. That's normal. Um, you're also you should probably expect that a TC is going to charge you half up front and half at closing. My team personally, if the file doesn't close, we don't we don't charge the second half.
Hmm.
Um, some people, there was this post on the sub free Facebook group. I don't know if you guys saw it
I
about
saw
this
it what
guy.
Doreen posted. She said,
Yeah,
"I'll give you breakfast for free too."
yeah, yeah, exactly.
I
Like
saw this actually.
that. Oh my gosh, I
Oh,
don't
can't hear you.
respond. No. Oh, sorry. I was like, I saw so many comments. I was like, it's not worth your energy. Don't respond. Don't respond. But I was like, oh, there's so many comments in there that I was like, oh my gosh. Because he wanted a TC who wouldn't charge up front. And he was like,
Mhm.
well, the loan officers don't get paid up front. The title company, like all this stuff. I'm like, one thing that or the attorneys, which most of them do, I know they're so rare to find attorneys who don't charge up front. Like my husband's an attorney in every office he's ever worked for will not even touch your file till you've paid.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. Mhm.
So the thing is like most TCs are independent contractors. Like your file doesn't close and I haven't charged you anything, and now I've done a month's worth of work and I have nothing to show for it. I'm not an hourly employee. So now my 5 little girls aren't getting fed.
Hmm.
Whereas like the title people, loan officers, guess what? Their salary, their hourly employees, they're still going to get paid and their families are still going to get fed.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If you want a TC to do a month's worth of work and you don't value them and you think they don't deserve to get paid for a month's worth of work because you had a crappy deal or you didn't do enough work or whatever, for whatever reason it doesn't close. Like that's tough to swallow.
Yeah. Yeah. Arguably, though, like I think what they really needed to consider is incorporating a TC in-house.
Yeah,
Because when you
absolutely.
have an in-house TC, then you have more of that flexibility, right? I mean, I've been an agent where I've done work and transaction didn't go through. Mark had one recently where it was a condo. The tenant was like really gross. And so he could not sell this property and had to take it off the market. And this is after already paying for some handyman work, for paying for photography, for paying for, the, MLS. So there are some services that are harder to get paid for in this industry. But I think, like anything, if you know your worth and you know your value, then charge accordingly.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
if you are a TC who is just starting, you might want to do stuff for free because you need
Absolutely.
that experience.
You need the experience.
But that's also because you don't have much experience, the value isn't there where you should expect something.
Mhm.
So I would
Exactly.
argue that you, Perla, and your team have handled enough transactions where you should expect something up front because it's
Absolutely.
coming with a worthiness behind it. Yeah.
Yeah. And at this point, I completely agree. 100% it comes with that experience. And at this point, it's really great to have a team in a company because I can easily throw it at company policy. Hey, unfortunately, it's part of our policy, our company policy that we take half up front.
This is true.
Super easy, right?
Totally. I like it's
So-
it's the equivalent in the property management space of the trip charge, essentially, right? If we're having vendors go
Yeah.
out to a place, but now we got to get multiple quotes. Well, we've already had somebody drive out there. They spend an hour of their time. They need to be compensated in some way or another for
Mhm.
doing that. And then if there is no trip charge, it's because we decided to use them and it ends up going towards the final balance. But at least
Yeah,
there's something
exactly.
to respect their time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Absolutely. So learning your value, but be of value first. So yes, if you're a new
Agreed.
TC, be willing to work for free if you have to at first or at reduced rate. Just know you're going to attract, like, think about once you have the experience, think about the person that's going to attract. I did try that several times. Hey, all right, I'll get paid at the end. And if not, you can pay me a cancellation fee. Hey, no problem. Guess what? I never saw a single cancellation fee. And
Right.
I can use that now. Hey, we tried that in the past and we got burned so many times that it's now company policy that we take half up front or we don't get started on a file.
Yeah.
Love it.
And we can say
Slava,
that now.
Slava has a question for you.
Yeah,
So
I saw that.
Perla, how often do you handle double closing transactions compared to traditional assignments? Like, maybe there might be something behind this question too. Like, are you seeing an uptick of those types of way of closing?
Honestly, my bread and butter is sub 2, and I don't recommend double closing on a sub 2 because of one thing. It's that power of attorney, that sub 2 packet. If part of the reason people do a double close is to hide the end buyer, right? They didn't build for whatever reason. Maybe they didn't build a rapport with the seller to tell them it's being assigned, or they don't want them to see the assignment. Whatever reason for double closings, there's lots of them. But at the end of the day, if you're buying a sub 2, it's an ongoing relationship. Like I just got a text from the guy I have a sub 2 house with in Avondale because there was an issue with the bank pulling my payment. We're in constant communication. And if you're double closing on a sub 2, that seller has no idea who your end buyer is. It's an ongoing relationship. That's super not cool.
Yeah. That
And
makes
you're
sense.
and now they're not going to get a power of attorney, the authorization forms, those are non-transferable.
So your bread and butter is creative, but then do you also do cash deals
Absolutely.
then? Okay.
Yes.
So
So
Slava, if your question is regarding
for
cash,
cash.
let's talk about that. Are you seeing a higher double close percentage for cash deals?
Only if it's a pretty high, like they're going to make a lot of money.
Pretty high assignment fee. Yeah.
Yeah, if it's a high assignment fee, I totally get it. Like, hey, I'm gonna make 50K. I don't want anybody to know about that. If
Well,
it's 10K,
From a hard money perspective,
yeah.
our
Yeah.
lenders will cut us off. We had somebody that was going to make like 60K on an assignment, and we were going to have to come out of pocket. I think we did come out of pocket, Ingrid.
Yeah, I
forget
think
what
it
that
was
looked like.
seven or $8,000 out of pocket for that one.
Yeah, because it ended up being too high and it didn't meet the requirements for the hard money lender. They are fine with people making assignments, but they are like at a certain point they cut it off.
Yeah.
Isn't
If
that
it's more than
crazy?
15% of the purchase price, you have to pay part of, if it's anything above 15%. So if their assignment fee is more than that, then you're going to have to pay the difference as a borrower. But even double closings it won't stop that, because they have a rule that says any closing within the last 12 months, if that is also above 15%, you're paying anything more than that. And I can actually appreciate that from somebody who's lent in the past and then who wants to grow in the lending space, because you want to make sure that we're not going into a bubble, if you will, and that like there's no course correction, like has happened in Austin, for example, like the one freaking city I did lose money in, because there was no safeguards like that for
Yeah.
lenders. Mhm.
There's always a reason, it's like
Yeah.
that one story that it happened over and over, and now we have to have more regulations. So
There's
Totally.
a reason why our packets when we go to close with hard money are this thick every single time, and there's only 3 signatures total, but they have to
Oh my
enforce
gosh.
everything. I'm like, well, they've
Seriously.
been screwed enough times to know how to
Yeah.
themselves
I will
out.
say strategically too, because hedge funds are starting to join the party again. And so with hedge funds
Oh.
coming back, I do believe, Slava, that we're going to see more double closing on cash, because people are going to want to protect the buyer information, so that they're not having to share it with whoever they might be daisy chain wholesaling with, or joint venturing with, or whatever. They want to keep that very close to the cuff, and so they don't want to share that info.
Yeah. Interesting that you mentioned the hedge funds. That's such a hot topic. And I like one of my personality strengths is also like a weakness, is that I'm very understanding and I'm very good at seeing both sides of a story.
Mhm.
And for that reason, it can be really hard for me to ever pick a side on anything. And hedge funds is one of those. Like if you're a wholesaler, you can assign something to a hedge fund at a higher assignment fee.
Mhm.
But at the same time, so that sounds great, but at the same time, it's like, well, don't we want the money to go more within our circle of people that we actually know, that it's going to somebody's family to feed their family, not to feed another huge hedge fund that doesn't care about people?
Yeah.
So I'm just interested in what your guys' thoughts are on
I advocate
working
for
with
what
hedge
Perla's
funds.
saying. You should sell us your deals, and I will flip the house, and then we can sell it to the hedge fund afterwards. That way everybody wins.
I'm with it. It'll be one very soon day that Stephen will be in politics, but anywho, I go back and forth on this, and I do think that maybe there should be some regulation in terms of what percentage hedge funds can own
Agreed.
and what loopholes around hedge funds can own. Because at the end of the day, we should be protecting our local investor, like the people who are closer to the ground doing the things. But at the same time, hedge funds also have that capital available, so they can't be slumlords. It's harder
Yeah.
for hedge funds to be slumlords, like a local investor who doesn't know what they're doing can be, because it's easier
They don't
to
have the
sue a
resources.
hedge fund. It's easier to,
Yeah.
and so, it's this is what Stephen always says.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Exactly my
I get
point.
lots of
Yeah.
comments on that a lot.
It's so
that one's a
hard
tough
to.
one. That one's a tough one, but if I have to go feed my family and I need to go sell it to a hedge fund because that's who's buying, I'm probably going to sell it to them, if I'm being very
Oh,
honest.
1000%. If my house is sitting on the market and I'm in pain, and I know the
Mhm.
hedge fund is gonna give me an all cash offer, quick close, and it's gonna still be profitable for me, I'm probably gonna end up going to the hedge
Yeah.
fund.
Yeah. Perla, what percentage of contracts what's your fallout rate? Do you guys keep KPIs on that?
We don't, but they're pretty low. Like the only time a deal doesn't close is just because like a buyer, we couldn't find a buyer, or the wholesaler ended up not being able to find a buyer. We do
Mhm.
have a dispo partner. I'll refer them if they can't find their own buyer. But sometimes it's just they can't find a buyer in
Not a
time.
deal. Mhm.
Yeah, it's not ideal. It's, maybe it's in the middle of nowhere, or
Mhm.
it needs a lot of repairs, whatever, but it's very rare for it to not close for any other reason.
Mm.
Yeah.
Um, any other reason, we're usually there to help, like, hey, this is how we can solve this problem. Hey, let's try this. let's negotiate for this. Like everything is negotiable, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Everything is figure outable, right?
I
That's
love
what
Everything
it.
is figured.
Marie,
I
what's her
always say
name?
that a lot in the
Marie,
office. Yeah,
what's her
yeah.
name? That wrote that book. Forgio or something, whatever her name is.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Um, so there, as long as you have people who are willing to have good conversations with your sellers and figure out a way to make it work. Unfortunately, sometimes our wholesalers end up taking a cut, and I totally have so much respect for them because they're like, hey, I didn't know about this. It came out later. I'm gonna have to take a haircut, and it's okay because I'm doing right by the sellers. I'm doing right by the end buyers. I absolutely love working with wholesalers like that. Ingrid, Eddie, they're great examples of people who will do that to make sure that our people are taken care of, that the sellers are taken care of, that we stand by what we said we were going to do to help them out. So it's very rare for us to want to keep working with people who don't want to do that. So our closeout rate's pretty high unless they
Yeah,
just couldn't find a buyer.
that
That's
makes
great.
sense.
I
Good.
think the quintessential wholesaler needs to have that equal balance too, Perla, to that point. They need to have the balance of what's in the best interest of the seller. And then also the buyers that they're working with as well, because I have so many wholesalers that I've worked with in the past and they're unfortunately greedy. But then I have other wholesalers that I've worked with where they're like, I probably could make another 10K on this, or I could make another 15, 20K on this, but at the end of the day, they're like, I want to continue a relationship with you and have you
Hmm.
be a consistent buyer for us. And
Exactly.
because at the end of the day, us as the fix and flippers end up taking all the
Exactly.
risk. There's a deal that we did in Mesa, Ingrid and I, and the wholesaler there was like, oh, we could have made probably 15 more K on this. So you guys got a good deal from us. And we ended up, so they made, I think, like 35K on that deal. And we, I think, netted 20K that we had to split between the both of us. And we had to put in 3.5 months worth of
All
work,
that work.
all that kind of stuff that goes along with it. We thought it was going to be bigger, but you just don't know what you're going to get.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah, you
crazy.
open up the house and you find more things that need addressing. So
Always.
that's the name of the game, though. Cool. Well, Perla, we thank you so much for coming on here. But what I took away from the KPI question I asked you was that have a TC by your side because you're going to close your deals. The
Yeah.
TC is going to make a difference, especially one as experienced as you guys and how much you guys actually try to consult. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming. So if somebody wants to do deals with you, where should they find you?
There is a link in the chat somewhere, right? We've got Ingrid left our link there. You could always go to tcdealpros.com, go there and just let us know that Ingrid and Steven sent you to us. We are having a really great Black Friday sale coming up next week if you want to get some TC services. So get on our email list so you can hear about our great, awesome um, Black Friday deals. And one more thing I just wanted to say from what Ingrid just said is look for a TC who's a good problem solver. Anybody can do paperwork as a TC,
Yes.
but your real value comes in can you help solve problems because there's always a problem. It's very rare to have a transaction that doesn't have something that comes up. So problem
Hmm.
solving skills. I think the fact that I used to be a math teacher, so like my problem solving skills are pretty high.
Yeah.
Well, and,
Yeah.
and you know how to work with children, it sounds like too. And that's a lot of the people that we're
Oh
dealing
my
with.
gosh, yes.
No,
I
and
did
you guys,
junior high, so if I can handle junior high kids, my gosh, you guys are
yeah,
easy. It's yeah, my business partner and his business partner for another business were out to dinner last night, and they were like, "Yeah, we were talking about you and how like nothing bothers you." I'm like, I think from working with junior high, having 5 kids, it's pretty hard to rattle me these days.
oh,
I'm like, it's
totally,
gonna be
totally.
okay. The house is on fire. Just grab your shoes. Everybody walk out single file. It's gonna be okay. And people are like freaking out. So I don't
I
know if that's a
totally agree
strength
with
or
you
not,
though.
but
Yeah. On the creative side too, especially, you guys don't rely on your title person to know what the heck they're doing. In fact, you should count on your title person just messing it up. Just count on it happening
yeah.
because it's
Count
90% of
on
the
the
time
settlement
something's
statement
going
to
to be
be
wrong.
wrong.
Yep. Oh wait, there's full commissions. There's this. There's that. Like let a professional run you through it and
Yeah.
walk you through it and handle it for you. You don't need to worry about that kind of stuff. They'll take it
Yeah.
to the finish line.
Go get another
Yeah.
deal instead.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Thank you guys so much. This was so fun. I just love talking real estate.
Me
Yeah,
too.
I love talking with you
I
guys.
could go another hour.
We could all be here for hours, right?
I know. I think one thing we could have done better, and that way we need to have you back, is we need more stories. Like, tell us how you
Ooh,
saved the
I've got
day.
some
Like,
oh my gosh, I have a really good one about like a solar lean. I think I told you about it. I think I
oh,
voice texted you maybe about a
um,
fraudulent solar lean and how we handled that. That was a good story.
mm.
I gotta
You
tell you
guys
that
better
story.
tune next time when we have Perla, and you'll hear about
On
the
I have
part
solar
two.
lean.
so many stories. I have so many stories.
Yeah, right on. Well, thank you so much, Perla. We appreciate you, and of
Thank
course,
you
we
guys.
will have you back.
All right, sounds good. Thank you guys.
Awesome,
And
Bye.
thanks,
Perla. We'll see ya.
everybody. Remember, we're here every Wednesday from 1 to 2 Arizona time, live on YouTube. So join us next week. Bye bye.